In the next 48 hours or so, I think we're going to get to see for the first time just how much political interference FBI agents faced in multiple jurisdictions when they got predicated leads, meaning evidence that warranted criminal investigation. That's what a predicate is. But concerning the Clinton Foundation, we're probably going to be able to name the names of people who ordered these investigations shut down, even though the FBI manual, the U.S. Attorney's manual, suggested those investigations should proceed until determinations were made about criminality. I think this is the big Hillary scandal that has sort of skated below the radar, and I think it's going to be, in the next few weeks, a very parallel story to what happened to Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, the FBI, the IRS, everybody knew he had a problem and nobody could get the permission to go and do the case right until these whistleblowers came forward with us 2 years ago. I think similarly, you're going to see that there was a protection racket around Hillary Clinton, not just on the email. We know what James Comey did with his magic FBI wand. He wasn't allowed to do it, but he did it. He cleared her in the FBI in the emails case. But you're going to see a protection racket around the Clinton Foundation, and you're going to be able to see who in government was providing that protection.
All right, guys, we are about to have a bombshell day. Good Wednesday to you. We are over the hump. A lot going on with the president. An amazing panel coming your way tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kennedy Center, where the president is right now, or was today, was earlier today. But I'm going to tell you, John Solomon's here, and we've got a lot to break down with him. You remember the last time he was here? We talked about the strike force, the grand jury, it all happened. Well, he's got a lot to share with us today. There is a brand new report out that a Democrat staffer on the House Intelligence Committee was told by Adam Schiff to leak classified information to create a narrative against Donald Trump. We're going to break all that down with him because Kash Patel is releasing more documents. A big deal going down there. So we're going to cover all of that with our good buddy, John Solomon. As I mentioned, tomorrow, an amazing panel coming your way. Steve Cortez is going to be here, Sarah Gonzalez of The Blaze, and Mary Margaret Olahan of The Daily Wire, all here. And then Friday, Robert Cahaly, the pollster wizard of all, who calls it all right. Where are we? Where's President Trump? Where's the agenda? How are we doing going into the midterms? We'll break it all down with Robert Cahaly. Before we get into John Solomon, though, a couple reminders. Please, if you have 2 seconds, one, join us at 6 o'clock for the premiere. It's always fun. I love the chat. And if you're watching on Apple or Spotify, or even if you're just someone who likes watching on X or Rumble, do me a favor, go to Apple and Spotify, hit that 5-star review. It really helps the show. Takes 2 seconds. Please do it. Hit 5 stars saying, I love watching the show. Get total insight, whatever you want. But it'll take you 5 seconds, and it's a super helpful. Always hit subscribe and notify. Share the link with 5 friends to watch the show and help it grow. Thank you for everything you guys have done. Unbelievable growth on this channel because of what you guys are doing. So thank you so much. I'm excited to break down everything today with John Solomon. Before I do that, though, you guys, one of the groups I love having on the show is Concerned Women for America. Penny Nance, the CEO, is doing unbelievable work. There is a culture war that you guys are well aware of going on in this country. We're talking about pronouns, men and women's sports, woke and DEI ideology. Concerned Women of America have been at the forefront of the culture wars in this country. They were fighting keeping men out of women's sports before it was cool for like decades. The whole organization is built on 7 core issues: family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, parental choice and education, fighting sexual exploitation, national sovereignty, and support for Israel. They're out there on the front lines, not just in Washington, D.C., but they got chapters all throughout the country that Penny Nance and her team are leading to make our kids safe. If you're a mom watching the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. No offense to the dads, but you guys know what your kids are seeing and hearing every day online, in their schools, at sports. And Concerned Women for America are doing the spade work of helping to get us back to normal and to call attention to these woke ideological issues that are coming up. If you guys are willing to give $20, not only will you help the work of Concerned Women for America, but you'll get Penny Nance's brand new book, A Woman's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. It's a great read, but more importantly, it's helping them with all the work they're doing. Go to concernedwomen.org/Sean, concernedwomen.org/Sean, SEAN. So concernedwomen.org/SEAN to get a copy of Penny's book and help their work. By the way, Those guys are on fire. But you know what else is on fire? Is my breakfast, my lunch, everything, because I've been adding Firecracker Farm hot salt. This is what it looks like. It's like it's like a pepper shaker, except you press this button and boom, a powerful blend kicks in. And I'm talking eggs and omelets, on vegetables. I've been trying it on the steaks. It adds a total flavor. Megyn Kelly's been touting it. Joe Rogan's been touting it. It keeps getting sold out. And it's a total upgrade to your food, like a big bam in your mouth. Remember Emerald? Bam! That's what I'm talking about. They've got these 3 peppers in there, Ghost, Reaper, and Scorpion. Enough said, if you know what I'm talking about. I will say this, though, as a guy who likes spicy food, and it adds a level of flavor and power and boom to what you're eating. So it's not like necessarily hot. Don't get freaked out if you're not a hot person. It's a balanced, deep flavor that adds to your vegetables or eggs or whatever that you like. It was sold out. They're back in small batch flavors right now. To go to firecracker.farm, not edu, not org, not .com. Firecracker.farm. Use code SPICER at checkout for a discount for our watchers and listeners. Thank you guys for your support. You're going to love this. It's going to add such flavor. Firecracker.farm. Smart choice and zero regret, by the way. It's awesome. Firecracker.farm. Use code SPICER. Now, without further ado, I want to bring in the man from Just the News who's leading all of these exposés and breaking news, Mr. John Solomon. John, great to see you again. Last time you were here, I feel like let's just start. I want Powerball numbers. Give me Powerball numbers. Last time you were here, you're like, there's going to be a strike force. There's going to be a grand jury. And like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, now I want, what should I play the numbers tonight? Because I feel like you were dead on. Let's just, before we get to Adam Schiff, because I got to get into this, give me an update on both. Like, what's going on with the strike force? What's going on with the grand jury?
Yeah, they're just getting started. There is some evidence beginning to be submitted to a grand jury somewhere in Middle America, meaning outside of Washington, D.C. I have not been able to ascertain the location. I've suspected it would be in Florida, but I can't get confirmation yet. But I do understand that some subpoenas have gone out to federal agencies to produce evidence that a grand jury may see. I think that eventually will lead to subpoenas of individual witnesses, and it will grow. But it is following the normal processes that a Justice Department used to follow, let's say back in the Reagan era when politics weren't involved. Career people make a decision to open a case. Career people say it's big enough to do a strike force. Strike force leads to grand jury. They're following the normal steps. They're not doing the secret hand in Washington, pulling something in the door and doing it their way like James Comey did, or like what happened early in the Trump administration where Mueller gets basically invented as a special prosecutor case when there was no, as we now know from John Durham, no predicate even to do that. So they're following the normal steps. I have never won the lottery, so I'm terrible. I'm just the bad at numbers. But I do have a crystal ball about what we probably will be talking about in the next 48 hours. After all the leak stuff that I've done the last few days, and you kind of see 2 buckets of leaks, you've got Adam Schiff, we'll talk about that, and then James Comey and his sort of personal media consigliere that he puts on the taxpayer's dime to burnish his image. One of the other things that I've always wanted to get to, and I think we have found the Holy Grail documents now, is everybody is focused on Hillary Clinton and the email server. And that's an important story, particularly because it involved classified information being moved through an insecure channel. But I've always believed that the bigger threat to Hillary Clinton was what the FBI was trying to do to look at whether her foundation was basically a backdoor for corruption. A Hunter Biden laundered through a C3 family foundation. In the next 48 hours or so, I think we're going to get to see for the first time just how much political interference FBI agents faced in multiple jurisdictions when they got predicated leads, meaning evidence that warranted criminal investigation. That's what a predicate is. But concerning the Clinton Foundation, we're probably going to be able to name the names of people who ordered these investigations shut down, even though the FBI manual, the U.S. Attorney's manual, suggested those investigations should proceed until determinations were made about criminality. I think this is the big Hillary scandal that has sort of skated below the radar, and I think it's going to be in the next few weeks a very parallel story to what happened to Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, the FBI, the IRS, everybody knew he had a problem and nobody could get the permission to go and do the case right until these whistleblowers came forward with us 2 years ago. I think similarly, you're going to see that there was a protection racket around Hillary Clinton, not just on the email. We know what James Comey did with his magic FBI wand. He wasn't allowed to do it, but he did it. He cleared her in the FBI in the emails case. But you're going to see a protection racket around the Clinton Foundation, and you're going to be able to see who in government was providing that protection. I think that's a very important moment for all of us to digest.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correct. That we knew that there was some nefarious stuff, some shady things surrounding the Clinton Foundation. But according to what you believe is about to happen, we are going to find out that certain individuals called off the dogs and said, do not look into this any further?
Yeah, I think you'll see words to the effect of shut it down. We're not going there, things like that. And what's interesting to me, and again, I'm still doing the work, but it looks like there were 2 or 3 separate FBI offices or 2 or 3 separate investigations in multiple jurisdictions into various allegations of pay to play. Again, the Clintons should be presumed innocent. That's something the Democrats never did for Donald Trump. But the fact that the FBI had enough information to open up an investigation during the 2015-16 timeframe when she's moving from Secretary of State to presidential nominee is significant news. And if there are political players hovering above the career apparatus that were interfering, obstructing, ordering a shutdown, I think that's going to be a really important piece of this story. We believe the cycle, Sean, like we talked about last time, is Democrat has a problem. Hillary Clinton with the foundation, Hillary Clinton with the email. They wave that off, they protect that person, and they project a fake scandal on Donald Trump called Russia collusion. Joe Biden in 2019, when I write the first stories that the Hill has a problem with Hunter Biden in Ukraine and Russia and China, and they launched the fake Ukraine impeachment scandal. In 21, Joe Biden has classified documents found in his home garage and his UPenn office, and they start a criminal investigation of Donald Trump for having documents he very likely might have been allowed to have. You see this wash, rinse, repeat cycle. I think the part that's been missing in the Clinton to Russia collusion scandal is how much further along the FBI was at looking at the foundation as a possible criminal enterprise. Again, no one was ever charged, but the fact that they were looking at it and got shut down before their work was done, I think is going to fit this pattern that may be at the heart of the conspiracy case right now.
So my guess is that if FBI launches an investigation looking into somebody, it would take somebody very senior, either in the FBI or higher up in the Department of Justice, to say, stop.
Yeah. My guess is it comes somewhere near the director's level at the Bureau or the Attorney General's level at the Attorney General. Now, I want to wait and see what the evidence comes in. But typically, in the times we have seen sort of political meddling in cases, an AG or a FBI director is involved, and often their deputies get tasked to do the hard work, right? Hey, guys, I'm bringing you a message from the director, from the AG, you're shutting this down. Let's see if it follows that pattern. That is a pattern that has happened in earlier political meddling in the Justice Department all the way back to the 70s when, in Watergate, you had John Mitchell, the Attorney General, trying to stop the FBI from investigating Watergate. You had high-up officials in the CIA trying to hide evidence or to scare off the FBI from doing its job. Let's see if it rises to that level. I mean, in Nixon, it was the Attorney General. Let's see where it goes. But there's a history of this, and let's see if it follows that pattern.
So as you're saying this, though, I'm putting this into my own head right now. So let's just say this is all true. If you think that Comey, I don't know how the director of the FBI wouldn't know, whether he's complicit or not, he would have to know that his agency was being told to do something or stop doing something. And then months later tells Donald Trump, hey, by the way, there's this annex. As I've told you, I was one of a handful of people in that room that day when Comey interacts for the first time. And by the way, John, I've said this to other folks, Donald Trump wasn't a politician, right? So the first interaction he ever has with the FBI director is in a meeting where the FBI director says, why don't we go to the corner of the room because I have something to share with you privately. And subsequently, everyone says, I can't believe Donald Trump thought you could have these one-offs with the FBI director, to which my answer has always been, why wouldn't he think that? That's how it all started, and it was initiated by Comey. But getting back to this for a second, Comey at some point had to know either he was directing or he knew who was directing if any of this plays out. It then leads me to believe, to your point about the pattern, that all of these things that he's doing, don't hire Mike Flynn. There's an Annex A. Here's what I'm doing. He talks openly in interviews about sending FBI agents over the White House because, quote, why not? So if this is true, doesn't this, I mean, the Comey is really, I mean, this isn't just a pattern. I mean, anyone who's watched Law and Order is going, this seems like this guy was setting the guy up.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's no better evidence of that than the January 5th, 2017 meeting with Barack Obama and James Comey, and I think Sally Yates and others are in that meeting, if I remember correctly. And the FBI just the day before, had decided to close down its investigation of Mike Flynn. They found no evidence of wrongdoing. There was no further reason. They wanted to create a closed memo, and then Pete Strzok says, hold off, don't do that yet. And they have a meeting at the White House. And what is that? Oh, Joe Biden's in that meeting too. What are they talking about? How can we maybe keep this investigation going? Maybe we look at the Logan Act. Maybe we lure him into an interview. And one of the top FBI agents in that room, the assistant director for counterintelligence for the FBI at the time, Bill Priestap, comes out of that meeting and writes, I think, one of the most damning, most extraordinary notes in all of the scandal annals of history in Washington. And that is, what was our goal today? Was it to find the truth or to try to lure an innocent man into lying so we could charge him with something? He walked away with a meeting from the president and his top team thinking, I just witnessed an effort to set up an innocent man. And he writes that into his notes. Those notes are now, I think, when you look at the pattern, perhaps the summary of what was really going on, making innocent people go through a process to make them look like they were guilty for political gain. And I think that is probably what we're going to see. It's the reverse of Watergate. Watergate was Nixon ordered to break in, tried to cover it up, or at least there was a break-in, he tried to cover it up. In here, there's no crime, but they want to make it look like Donald Trump and his team are full of crimes. And that is a very, very troubling change in the way our government has worked over the years. Last week, Harmeet Dillon came on the show. She's the civil rights chief for the FBI. And she said, based on what she's seeing, and she's not going to talk about specific cases, but there's a very good chance that what the FBI is going to look at and the Justice Department is going to look at is that this process, this clear Hillary and put a fake scandal on the Trump people, may have been a deprivation of civil rights and civil liberties under color of authority. The last time we saw those sort of prosecutions would have been during the Jim Crow era in the 60s and maybe Rodney King in 93. Of course, in those cases, force was used. Here, we're using the machinations of intelligence to put people through a punishing multi-million-dollar process for crimes they never committed.
I'm desperate to get to this Adam Schiff thing, but there's a couple things that you've brought up that I want to get to.
Sure.
Based on what you just said, is General Mike Flynn owed an apology? Or, I mean, I think about all the meetings that people had in the last couple transitions with foreign figures. Like, is he owed an apology? Is he actually guilty of anything?
Listen, he pled guilty to something, and you don't ever get to walk away from that. I know he's been pardoned, so at this point he's not guilty of anything. That's been erased or expunged.
But he pled guilty to lying to the FBI. And knowing what we know now about how the FBI acted, I mean, look, John, you've covered this way more than anybody else. John, you've covered all this stuff. And I know from talking to everyone from Alan Dershowitz to whatever, when the full force of the Department of Justice comes down on you and says, well, John Solomon, I tell you what, you either plead to this because we got you did lie, or we're going to destroy your entire life, John Solomon. We're going to bankrupt you, your kids, your wife, your family, your dog. We're coming after you. Or you can plead guilty to this misdemeanor and, what do you want to do?
So all the things that you mentioned are exactly what Mike Flynn did. I've always tried to stay out of the category of expressing an opinion about what's owed. I can tell you that the way Mike Flynn was treated violates the Bureau's Domestic Intelligence and Operations Guide. It violated the U.S. Attorney's rules. You don't set up a innocent man for an interview he's not supposed to be interviewed for in hopes that you lure him into a false statement so you can charge him, which is what the notes from Priestap suggest was the motive of the president. I've always wondered if Bill Priestap would go before a grand jury. I don't know of any instance he did. I don't get a sense that he cooperated with the Durham investigation when you read the report. But if I'm the special prosecutor or the strike force team leader, I'm thinking those notes are going to make me compel Bill Priestap to testify about what he witnessed in that meeting. In there, most Americans I've seen, and I think the polling shows that most Americans think Mike Flynn was treated wrongly and badly. And I'm reminded of an interview I did a couple of years ago with an FBI whistleblower. He said, John, the end goal wasn't necessarily to get someone convicted. The process itself was the punishment, meaning if you can drain millions of dollars from someone, if you could sully their reputation, if you could get them to resign, it didn't really matter whether you convicted him. You had already achieved your political means under the color of government authority. And I do think that Mike Flynn falls into a category of someone who went through exactly that process.
I agree. The more I know, I'm like, boy, did that guy get screwed. All right, before I get to Schiff, one last thing that I need your take on. Roger Stone tweeted out, we mentioned Comey, there's Brennan. And Roger Stone tweeted out that he believes that Brennan is taking cover in Austria, and MSNBC has actually set up a studio so he can do hits and not appear as he gone, but that he fled the country. You've got better sources than anybody. Do you have anybody sharing this view that John Brennan has left the country, whether it's Austria or somewhere else?
Well, I will say it's ironic that Austria is mentioned, and I think I've seen a remote appearance for him by then, because that is where some of the oligarchs have fled. Perhaps the most famous is a Russian oligarch who has fought a 10-year case and been able to stay in Austria. Right now, the Austrian government has a conservative government. We do have an extradition treaty with them. I'm not sure it's the place you would flee if you were trying to flee thing. It could just be he's on summer vacation. A lot of people go to Austria in August. I don't have any personal reason to think he's on the lam or even has reason to be on the lam yet. I don't think they're that far down the path in the investigation. But we'll keep a close eye on it. Provocateurs often provoke discussion, and I'm sure that's what Roger Stone was. But I don't have any direct evidence that he's on the lam or the U.S. government thinks he's on the lam from them. And Austria would not be the place to go. We do have an extradition treaty.
All right, I hate to interrupt this great conversation, but later tonight when you're ready to go to bed, join me in crushing a bag of Beams Dream Powder. I know I always show you guys the cinnamon cocoa flavor. Tonight, when I tell you that I also do the brownie batter flavor, this is me, not kidding, because look at that bag, also crushed. I'm an equal flavor lover. Dreams Dream Powder, though, that's the thing. The flavors are amazing, but it's what's in them. All natural ingredients, 5 key things that you've probably tried in one shape or another. Melatonin, magnesium, reishi, L-theanine, apigenin. It's all natural. You fall asleep, you stay asleep, and you wake up. And as I've said, you guys, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you're never going to be on a journey to wellness. You can't ever do well if you don't get it. And I take a scoop of this every night, every single night. When I tell you guys I use it like clockwork, when I'm ready to go to bed half an hour before, I take a scoop, put it in some water, microwave for 30 seconds, and then down it goes. 30 minutes later, I hit the pillow, I'm out like a light. But I'm telling you, if you have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, you are going to love Beams Dream Powder. It's a great American company, and you're investing in yourself. So go to shopbeam.com/Spicer and use code word Spicer for up to 40% off. I would get all the flavors and try them. Shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. All right, back to the great conversation with John Solomon. All right, let's get to this bombshell report. Just the News breaks this as you guys, seriously, if you want to know what's going on, we now know where to be looking and refreshing all the time. Democrat whistleblower told FBI that Schiff okayed leaking classified intel to hurt Trump. That was the headline in Just the News. A big exclusive for you guys. Frankly, I'm blown away. First of all, I can't help but comment on the media. You guys keep hitting it out of the park. Exclusive, 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 exclusive. And yet it's like ignore, ignore, ignore. But walk us through what this Democrat whistleblower told the FBI, what the intel was, and how it's tied to Schiff.
So let's just identify who he is first so you can get a sense of his motivation. He is a lifelong career intelligence officer who eventually gets assigned to the House Democratic minority staff on the Intelligence Committee. So it's one of the most prestigious assignments an intelligence officer can get. You get sent to Congress to the premier oversight agency. He's there 12 years working for Democrats. He is very well liked. He doesn't have any problems with the Democrats until Adam Schiff takes over as the ranking member. And at that moment, he claims he attends a meeting in early 2017 where Adam Schiff, in front of other staff, states that he's authorizing the release of classified information to dirty up Donald Trump, to build public pressure, a narrative that Donald Trump maybe should be indicted, or that we should have a Watergate or 9/11 style commission that maybe Adam Schiff could serve on. The motive is identified, the date is identified, the early leak of what's going to come out is identified, and if the FBI does some basic work the first time they interview him. All right, this meeting occurred here. Can we find proof of it? Yeah, there's a meeting that day. Wait a second. 2 days later, Adam Schiff weighs in with a tweet on exactly what they were talking about in the meeting. Some credibility to this. By the way, he's a lifelong career guy. He's a Democrat. He's not a partisan. He tells him the only reason I came for it, I'm a Democrat. I'm a career guy. But what I witnessed in that room was illegal, unethical, and potentially treasonous. Those are the three words he uses to describe members of his own party on his own staff where he's worked successfully without incident for 12 years. That's what we see. And then over 4 years, he continues to repeat that information. And one of the things he states is that he's told early on, don't worry, if you're asked to leak, it's okay because you're never going to get prosecuted because the Justice Department's going to say, we don't want to mess with the issue of debate and speech clause, the constitutional separation of powers. Now, I am unaware, and I've been unable to find anyone in the Justice Department who claims there's a legal opinion saying if you're a member of Congress and you get executive branch classified information from CIA, FBI, NSA, you're immune if you try to leak. I can't find any. So there doesn't appear to be any legal ruling to that effect. But son of a gun, just like the whistleblower says, at some point, the FBI goes to the Justice Department, and the Justice Department tells the FBI, you know what? We don't want to mess with that debate and speech clause. Exactly what Adam Schiff predicted the Justice Department would do. The whistleblower seems to have some credibility. He's not hearsay. He's a first-hand witness to a meeting that the FBI was able to corroborate the date of the meeting. They were able to corroborate that Adam Schiff did something publicly that matches what was talked about at the meeting. So it had a lot of credence, but it really ended up going nowhere.
It's interesting you say that because as you were talking, I've been around classified information for over 25 years, and you have to have a source of classification that can classify things and then unclassify them. And I was thinking about it, scratching my head as you were talking. Like, I've never heard of any member of Congress having classification authority. So beyond this, Adam Schiff, in theory, is asking someone to break the law because the speech and debate clause, I would assume, applies to members of Congress. Even if you stretched it to classified information, you couldn't argue. I mean, by the way, there is a bit of irony. They go after Donald Trump for boxes of information that the president clearly has the ability to classify and declassify. But Adam Schiff, this would be a complete and utter violation as a member of Congress. And he's arguing to do this. So let's kind of just unpack this for a second. Where does this go from here? Like, is this just hearsay? Is it a whistleblower? Is the Department of Justice acting on it? Is there an active investigation?
We don't know if there's an active investigation. We do know that there is one provision of the statutes that allows for the statute of limitations to go to 10 years, which would take the expiration of potential criminal exposure to 2027, because the allegations in the meeting occur in early 17. That is if someone did it knowingly and willfully. When you look at what the man describes, he's clearly instructing his staff to do this, and there's also an explanation about why, even though you think this is illegal, you're not going to get caught. That sounds pretty knowing and willful if his account is accurate. There is some corroboration, but when the FBI went to interview other staffers who allegedly attended that meeting and were involved in the leaking, each staffer gave the same answer Adam Schiff allegedly gave his staff in the meeting, which is, we're not cooperating. We have speech and debate clause protections, and the Trump Justice Department didn't try to push, and Trump didn't try to push the limit and contend that. And so it gets swept under the rug. It's going to get looked at. All these new documents that are coming out are going to be part of that strike force. Where it goes from here, I don't know. But there's an interesting a decision that faces John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader now. He's the leader of the Senate. This allegation is now sitting out there. It's for everybody to read. It's very specific. It's never fully contested. And the John Thune, members of Congress don't get a security clearance. They get access to classified information by virtue of their job, but it's under an arrangement from the executive branch. And I think one of the questions I asked Jim Jordan, I've asked Tulsi Gabbard, I've asked the president's team at the White House, and we're trying to get a hold of Thune is, given this, until you resolve whether this is true or not, there is a pretty serious allegation that a member of Congress doesn't care about classification he may leak. Do you suspend Adam Schiff's access to intelligence until you resolve whether this is a question? This happened in 2017 and 18 when Adam Schiff temporarily got Devin Nunes disqualified as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee for allegations that turned out to be bogus. But Devin Nunes steps aside. Democrats ask for it. It happens. Does that now come back around, and is it that standard applied to Adam Schiff? Is he temporarily suspended from any intelligence briefings until they determine whether these allegations are true? It's a great question for John Thune. We're trying to run it down.
But John, I said this a moment ago, and you guys break all this news, just the news. But when an allegation of this level comes out, again, it's not a bogus source. It's a Democrat on the committee. That's not some random partisan or a pundit, secondhand hearsay, as you know. It's a firsthand source. Is there anyone aside from just the news that's picking this up and covering it?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's lots of people have covered it. Millions of people have probably read the story just by virtue of the number of views we got on our site. But I've seen lots of other people cover it over the last few days.
But did anyone in legacy media? I didn't see the Washington Post.
Some did. Yeah, no, not the Washington Post or New York Times yet. No, but they'll get to it a few days from now with their own spin. I'm sure they've covered a lot of the things that we've broken in the last couple of months. Several days later, but at the end of the day, here's one of the great things about the moment we live in. Why your show is so meaningful. What I try to do at Just the News is so meaningful. We are no longer hostage to the gatekeepers of the legacy media. They have yielded so much trust from the American people because of the way they've conducted themselves the last 10 years that you don't need them to validate or to confirm or spread a truthful story around. We have just as much reach, we have just as much power. And when people say, I don't believe you, John Solomon, I'm gonna say, all right, I'm gonna tell you, how did this happen? I wrote 4 years consistently while being smeared by my own profession and by Joe Biden's henchmen that Hunter Biden had a corruption problem and the laptop was real. In 2022, before the IRS whistleblowers came through, 77% of Americans said they believe that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden had done something wrong. Now, they didn't get that from the New York Times, CNN, CBS, NBC, ABC, all. They got that because people are now consuming news in places like your great show and what we do at Just the News. So I don't even care. And after watching what the traditional media did to me, they didn't often seek fair comment from me. When my story turned out to be true and they had sullied me, they never came back and said, John Solomon was right. I don't need the legacy media. I don't read them very often because I don't find them quite compelling anymore. But neither do rest of Americans. And I think the great news is we're no longer hostage to their gatekeeping capabilities.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting though on this story. There is now you also wrote a follow-up story that says FBI Director Kash Patel released bombshell documents to Congress showing how agents traced classified leaks to sources, but DOJ didn't act.
Yeah. So this goes back. Now this isn't the current DOJ. This is the old DOJ. Right. But this is an extraordinary story. We've always known for at least 4 or 5 years now, 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, that Daniel Richman, a Columbia law professor, was brought in by James Comey and admitted that he gave some of Comey's emails or relayed information from some of Comey's emails with the president to the media to try in these leaks right after Comey was fired. What we didn't know was what Richmond believed his job was. Why was he put on the taxpayer's payroll as a special government employee beginning in 2015? We get that for the first time in these memos, which reveal that Richmond told the FBI, under direct questioning from agents, he was brought in to burnish James Comey's image. He believed that Comey had been hammered in the media after the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and his job was to make him look good. He had a relationship with Michael Schmidt at the New York Times, and he leveraged that relationship with Michael Schmidt to burnish James Comey's reputation and to, quote, set a narrative or something. I don't know if it's a direct quote, but his goal was to set future narratives, i.e., the Russia collusion narrative. And in the course of learning that, the FBI realized he attended a meeting with Comey where highly classified information was shared with Danny Richmond because he's on the taxpayers' payroll. I think it's a good question for all of us to ask, why did the taxpayers pay for someone so that James Comey could have a PR representative burning his image? I think that's a good question.
Is this PR person, though, the FBI, like is he FBI media relations or is he outside counsel, like an outside PR guy?
He's an outside advisor, and he specifically said, I worked around the FBI's official press office. He went around
so the
FBI's
taxpayers are paying for like a PR consultant.
Right.
And just to be clear, to your point.
Now, in fairness, he's also a lawyer, but yeah.
Well, wait. Yeah. But the FBI has a media relations department that you could direct your team to. I mean, that's what, I mean, I've been a PR flack for years on the government dime. Like
that's
part of your job, wink nod, is to say my boss is great. This is them saying, no, we're not going to use the FBI's own media relations team. We're going to hire this outside dude to be a consultant just to focus on making
I want to remind people what that FBI press office often did. It was run by a guy named Mike Corton, who I think really viewed the public as his client, not the FBI director as his client. And back in October of 2016, when the New York Times and I were asking questions about Russia collusion, the FBI told the New York Times and me in 2016 that there was no there on Russia collusion, that it hadn't really checked out. That kind of undercut the whole James Comey, Andy McCabe, Peter Strzok narrative, the John Brennan narrative. So it appears that Comey went outside to get someone who might spin a different narrative, and Richmond does help spin that narrative. And at some point, they realize he attends a meeting, he gets highly classified information, and then he talks to a reporter who then eventually reports some of that information that is highly classified. And of course, the FBI had a pretty good reason to suspect maybe that's the leaker. So they bring him in and they interview him. And the news in this document, we've always known that Richmond leaked the memos. We didn't know that he was interrogated over classified information specifically until these documents came out. But he's asked, did you leak classified information? And his answer is going to fall up there probably with Bill Clinton's famous Monica Lewinsky answer in the grand jury, which is, it depends what the meaning of is. He was parsing words. It's probably the greatest non-denial in a long time. Well, this guy may be up there with it because he says, I'm pretty sure I didn't confirm the classified information, and I'm almost sure with a discount that I didn't leak the document. Just think about it. He needed a discount on his answer in order to say that. That is a shocking answer. And of course, the FBI doesn't seem to follow. What do you mean a discount? Are you telling us the truth or you're not? We can't find evidence he was brought before the grand jury. Maybe he did, but we don't see it. So it's left at that. But we now know that we paid for a guy to burnish James Comey's interview. He's in contact with a reporter who did get classified information. Now, he does admit he was discussing the classified information with this reporter because the reporter seemed to know it. He's trying to say, well, I don't think I confirmed it, and I don't think I gave it to him with a discount. That's the sort of people that were helping set the narrative on Russia collusion, just like Adam Schiff, just like this guy. I believe there are two other names in the documents I made public yesterday that are redacted with really explosive information. They're other lieutenants of James Comey. I'm working with the Justice Department, the Bondi Justice Department, to maybe get those redactions lifted, because I don't think that Richie was acting in isolation. Richmond was acting in isolation, so I'd like to see if we can get those redactions lifted, see if my suspicions are correct. But when you ask, how did America get lured into thinking its president was a Russian stooge when there was zero evidence of it? It's because of these strategic leaks from people like Adam Schiff, James Richmond, maybe these two other FBI folks, other people we now know are out there peddling these stories. We went through 3 years of turmoil on a fake scandal. Now we're beginning to understand who were the people that set that narrative, and two, who were the co-conspirators in the news media who later gave themselves Pulitzer Prizes and have walked around keeping those prizes even though the whole scandal's been turned out to be bogus. We now see who the bridges were between the media who fell for it and the perpetrators who gave it to them. And I think it's important for the New York Times to take note of the story I wrote this morning, because when he's facing an FBI agent and the possibility of being charged with lying if he doesn't tell the truth, James Richmond tells the FBI, my goal was to use the New York Times to fix James Comey's reputation and to set a narrative, i.e. Russia collusion. The New York Times got an award for working with people like this who now admit their goal was to create a narrative and do some PR work for James Comey. I'm not sure that's the best outcome of great journalism.
So do you think they were complicit or just stooges?
Who knows? I don't know. Right? Listen, here's what I would say. People said, John, why did you never fall for the Russia collusion thing, and how did you unravel it? And I'd like to suggest I'm some rocket scientist, but I'm really not. In 2016, I went to the FBI press office and said, hey, is there anything to this? And they looked me in the eye, just like they looked the New York Times in the eye in 2016 and said, there's nothing there. It's just not checking out. We're looking at it. It's not checking out. So if the New York Times knows that then, right? If it knows that then, how does it in February, March, and April write all these stories that are contrary to what they've been told by the career people? And why are they now dealing with people who are the outsiders, i.e. Richmond, and not the career press people who are trained to tell American people the truth? You have to ask yourself, why did they make that flip? Why did they go down that path? And then there's a moment, and I think this is the most important journalism failure that has never been corrected. In February of 2017, the Pulitzer-winning New York Times wrote a story. Now, thankfully, they didn't submit this particular story to the Pulitzer board, but it's in the middle of their award-winning pat-on-the-back journalism that they gave themselves, saying that Donald Trump, the U.S. intelligence has evidence that Donald Trump was conspiring with members of Russian intelligence to hijack the 2016 election. You can go back and look at this. It's mid-February. It's like February 13, 14, 16, 17, somewhere in that middle week of February 2017. This story, you probably remember, hampered the White House. It gave great credence to a story that people up to that point had been a little dubious about. That story was never true. It never was true. In fact, even James Comey calls it hogwash when he testifies after he's fired as an FBI director. Think about that. The FBI, that story to this day has never been retracted. It has never been withdrawn. It hasn't been corrected. Yeah, they wrote the follow-up denials, but that that story stands in the annals of the New York Times uncorrected. And that's the newspaper that keeps telling us it deserves Pulitzer Prizes for its coverage.
You break all this stuff in Just the News all the time. But it makes me think, wasn't this the job of John Durham to get out the truth of what happened? In your opinion, based on all the stuff that look, and I say this respectfully, because you've got amazing sources and you get proven right over and over again through your reporting. But John Durham has the power of the government. Why couldn't he get what you get?
Well, he did get a lot of it. Listen, we had to go get the classified annex, but that's John Durham's work. That bombshell that Tulsi and Ratcliffe and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi gave us a couple weeks ago, that was sealed because it had so much classified information in it. And President Trump, in an interview with me, agreed to unseal it, and 5 days later he did. But he did have most of the Holy Grail stuff. The frustration is he tried to bring 2 charges. He got shut down. And once, if you couldn't get Sussman and Danchenko convicted, the chances of you getting John Brennan and Comey or someone else, almost zero. And so at some point he read the tea leaves, which is the jury pool I was dealt with is not going to allow me to secure any more convictions. So I'll write the best report I can. But his report, it isn't well written. It's a really crappy narrative report. But if you know what to pick out of it, he found almost all the good stuff. He does allude to the leaks. He does allude to so many other things. I wish he was a better writer because people might have picked up more in 23 when the report comes out. But he found a lot. History will look back and say he got a good majority of the facts out. I think the history will say Bill Barr as the Attorney General may have really let the American public down. What if the American public knew the two things that Bill Barr knew in the summer of 2020? That there's a criminal investigation of Hunter Biden for things that we were just told were fake, and there is a reason to indict Obama-era Democrats for what they did during Russia collusion. If he had just said that and maybe acted in the summer of 2020, I think history would be changed in a very different way, and we might not have had the 2020 election debate we ended up having.
Two more quick things. There's an interview that you did that I thought was fascinating where you highlight this interview that Obama does on NPR where he gets ahead of the intelligence.
It's my favorite story.
I was blown away. Just for the audience who hasn't seen this, we'll play the B-roll for everyone, but like Obama does an interview with NPR and walk us through what happens.
So he basically lets the cat out of the bag that he already knows that the intelligence committee is going to conclude that Vladimir Putin helped Donald Trump win the election. Now that's remarkable because it's December 18th is the date of the interview, 2016. The new intelligence committee assessment has just begun. There's no work done on it. They're just getting started. The debates are going to be in late December. He already knows the conclusion. And what's even more amazing is just 3 weeks before that, the intelligence community told Congress, no, Putin didn't help either candidate. In fact, he pulled out of the election in October, which surprised the intelligence community. So there's the official finding of the intelligence committee is still there was no thing. There's a concocted one being written. He already knows the outcome. Now, what makes it more amazing, not only does he tip his hand that the fix was in, he realizes he tipped his hand because he leaves the room, ends the interview. He comes back in and tries to say, oh, hey, what I said about that whole Russia collusion thing, it's still ongoing. He has to try to eat his words because somebody on his staff realized, Mr. President, you let the cat out of the bag. And I think that's really an extraordinary part of this.
Maybe that's where I should get my Powerball numbers. Last thing I want to ask you is J.D. Vance does an interview the other day, and he says, if basically that old that line that we always say, if you don't look at history, you're doomed to repeat it. The question I have is, A, is anyone going to be held accountable, and what are we doing to ensure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I think the pressure on all of those things rests with two people. Pam Bondi in the Justice Department. Can she navigate this and be more successful than the John Durhams and the Muellers and others who looked at this previously? And then two, can the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, reinvent the intelligence community to return it to its core mission of intelligence without politics? And that's going to mean a massive cut down, a massive rebuilding. It's going to be a painful process. But right now, the culture in the intelligence community, the law enforcement community is still, there's no consequence. So we'll play politics when it suits us. They have to change that culture. They have to go back. The deterrence of prosecution will do some of that on Pam Bondi, but there's a cultural and structural change that has to be made. I think you're going to see Tulsi Gabbard announce a major reorganization of the ODNI in the next few weeks. It's going to be historic, and hopefully that sets us on the course of an apolitical intelligence committee like we used to have. And then Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. Kash is getting all the evidence out there. Let's see if Pam Bondi can get a prosecution team that can deliver some form of accountability. I think that's where the answer lies.
All right, a lot of news here today on Hillary Clinton, on Pam Bondi. John Solomon, thanks for always making news with us. Keep up the great work there at Just the News.
Love your show. Thanks. Thanks, Sean.
All right, thanks for being here, guys. What an amazing show. Great panel tomorrow. And then Friday, Robert Cahaly. Always go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for that newsletter. It's free. I do love a VIP subscription. Thanks for joining. If you're here for the premiere, come on, join us at 6 o'clock every night, Eastern Standard Time, in the chat on YouTube or wherever you want to watch. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.